I will move on to my next talk, which is about OCT and what are the current advents we have in the OCT. You can put the next Dr. Dogra's talk on that, so we will save time. About OCT, we all know by now the time domain is out. No, this is not my talk. Please stay on my computer. We are now moving from spectral to adaptive optics. Now, spectral domain, we already know. Professor Amod Gupta has beautifully shown you all the images, the three-dimensional C-scans and the single-layer images. There has been a change in the nomenclature on OCT. We are no longer using the same terms which we were using in past. Workshop on the nomenclature for OCT meeting, there was a consensus on the terminology. So what we see here is the posterior cortical vitreous. Behind that is pre-retinal space. Then this thing here which we are seeing between the fovea and the optic disc is nerve fiber layer. Then, of course, ganglion, inner plexiform, inner nuclear, outer nuclear, Henle cell layer. This is the outer nuclear layer. This beautiful line here is the external limiting membrane. This junction, which we used to call outer photoreceptor, is now changed to myeloid zone. IS-OS line is being called ellipsoid zone. Then is the interdigitation, outer segments, interdigitation zone, choroid and sclera. This is so that we are all on the same platform when we are talking about the terminology. We wanted to see deeper because Sir has shown you that RPE is responsible, and he has also shown you that choroid is responsible for causing atrophy in geographic atrophy in ARMD. But how do you see choroid? We wanted to go deeper. So we had enhanced depth imaging where we can see layers of the choroid. This layer here is the layer of choriocapillaries. Then we have large choroidal vessels, which is Sattler's layer. And then we have the small choroidal vessels, Sattler's layer. And then we have the large, which is Haller's layer. We wanted to see the vitreous and we wanted to see the choroid. So we had something called combined depth imaging, as you can see here, that you can go from the vitreous, retina and choroids by adjusting your optics on the Heidelberg. This is from the Heidelberg. So you can do combined depth imaging to see everything from vitreoretina phase to choroid. But still we had some shortcomings of spectral domain OCT. We needed a better resolution. We wanted to go deeper, and the problem with enhanced depth imaging when we do it with spectral domain is that we have to put the calipers manually. So we cannot really say what we are saying is true. What is the depth of the choroid? What is the volume? Because it was all manually done. And we could not have three-dimensional maps from the choroid. So we moved on to the next technology, which is the swept source OCT. It's an ultra-high-speed swept source out of the Fourier domain, which of course has good resolution, 5 micron, which can go deeper, and that is the basic advantage. Now, these here are the images of the spectral domain OCT, and these one are the swept source OCT. I would like to draw your, I don't do glaucoma, but it's great for glaucoma, my colleagues tell me. But you can see here the depth of the choroid, which you can see with, this is EDI, and this is the swept source. This is the article published in BJO, and these images are from that article, which indicate that with the swept source, the maximum you could go was up to 6 mm, and you had to manually put all that, not with the This is with the spectral domain, not with the swept source anymore. You can go up to 12 millimeter and you have the algorithms and the machine doing it precisely where it should put. So we can see vitreous. We are getting more and more familiar with the pre-retinal space, with the Clockett's canal, and we are even now knowing that sometimes you give an injection, it does not work, Avastin. You repeat it after 3 weeks, it works. And the theory for that is that if your needle or your drug has entered this space, it's going to work faster, but if you remain somewhere there, it may not work. Now coming to the deeper structure here, again you can see the layer of the choriocapillaries, the sattler layer, hallux layer, and this is the supracolloidal lamina. So you can see up to the sclera and these structures in detail. This is the C-scan overlay, and C-scan is the future because the world is moving from B-scan to the C-scans, back from tomography to topography. So this is, for example, the outer retinal tubulation in a patient, which you can see on the B-scan, go back to C-scan, put on the fundus for getting exact point-to-point registration, as mentioned by Professor Gupta. Now let me show you just one quick image of age-related macular degeneration. We all know that anti-VEGF, they produce good short-term results. But we also know that those patients whom we have been injecting relentlessly for so many years, they are not preventing RPE atrophy, and you saw beautiful examples by Professor Gupta again. So now we are realizing that more than the RPE, it is the choroidal thickness which is decreased in patients with new vascular AMD, and it decreases further with anti-VEGF therapy. Now, whether it is the natural course or whether it is drug-induced, we still do not know. This is an example of a new vascular ARMD patient at presentation. You can see here the Sattler's layer you can't see. You can see some bit of choriocapillaries, and then you have the hallux layer, the large choroidal vessels. You don't see Sattler's layer. And this is post multiple injections. You see the Sattler's layer is totally disappeared. It's just not visible. And even the hallux layer is undergoing atrophy. So is something happening to the choroid with our multiple injections? We do not know, but surely we would have answers. Coming to the last aspect of the OCT, moving on to adaptive optics. What is adaptive optics? It's very simple. You add adaptive optics to OCT, it increases the lateral resolution, smaller speckle, improves sensitivity, so you can have 3D cellular resolution of the retina. What does it mean? It means that it gives you a resolution that you can see cones individually. It's very interesting, it's very fascinating. It's not a tool as yet for the busy clinical practice, but it's a fun tool to play with. Now these are the images we have taken from the camera that we have very recently. So you see all these bright spots. These are cones. Then you also see the spots which are not so bright. They are also cones. Because earlier they thought the brighter one was cone and not so bright it was rod, but now they believe that the cones are perpendicular. So when you throw light, there is a Stiles-Crawford effect, because of which you will not see them uniformly. You will see some of them very bright, some of them not so bright. So right now we are at a stage where you cannot really see what is cone, but these are cones. This is the cone mosaic. It generally takes, when we do it, it generally takes, when it says 0, 0, it means you are right in the fovea centralis. And the camera that we have could take only 4-degree picture, and to take more than 4 degree, you had to ask the patient to move. when you come right in the center, sometimes the cones are so dense that you are not able to get the image because they are so compact that you cannot even get the image of the cone in the center. So it may appear like this, but these are all the spots. Then you can select the area of interest which you want to study. You can mark the cones and you can get the density color ratio, or you can see how far they are spaced from each other. I found it being more useful for studying the retinal vasculature actually, because when you are seeing, you can measure the thickness of the arterial wall, you can see the lumen, and I believe a lot of cardiologists especially in Paris, are using this to study the atherosclerosis and measuring the arterial AV ratio, because this is one tool where you can actually see and mark. This is the blood vessel. To focus on the blood vessel, you have to move your focus anteriorly. This thing here, which you see a shadow along the blood vessel, this is a normal. But this is the wall and this is the lumen. Of course, with the OCT angiography, now you don't have to inject the dye and you can study the blood vessels, but I'm not talking about that so far. Just to show you a couple of examples of what we all keep on doing in our clinical practice and how we keep on affecting the photoreceptors. Now you can see here a laser scar. You can see there is a scar beyond top, and you can see the cones in that area we have killed, absolutely killed. No cones at all. This is another example of a patient this is the pictures done earlier. Patient had CSC. Now he is resolved, but you can see this is matching the blood vessel along the leaf. This one is here, this is the one. You can see this is a normal cone mosaic. You should be seeing cones like this. But you can see the point where it was leaking. There has been damage to the photoreceptors because of the fluid that has been persisted. Again, a myopic foveoschisis here looks good, but when you see here, there is a damage. So you have to be careful when evaluating some of these eyes. The left eye of the same myopic patient with macular hole, you see here the macular hole because there are no photoreceptors and just the underlying RPE. This is the heel scar of CNV. So, last patient I'm going to show, this is the patient who had active rhinitis in Behçet's disease. And this was not the time we did not have adaptive optics. He was responding to treatment, but when he came to us, you can see here he still has very fine perivasculitis. And when you focus on the blood vessel, this here is the nerve fiber layer. Since nerve fiber and blood vessels are within 50 micro of each other, you sometimes see both of them together. So this is the RNFL and this is the blood vessel which is showing the perivascular infiltration in a patient with Behçet's. I'm looking forward to, but when you focus it back, you see the photoreceptors are not affected in the region which is below the vasculitis because his vision is 6/6 and vasculitis is not affected. Very good for studying the optic nerve head. They have algorithms to measure the dark areas and the white areas, and you can do a lot in glaucoma. So to conclude, spectral domain OCT is of course very, very useful for studying the retinal pathologies, but not very good for going deeper into the choroid. Swept source is very useful for studying the choroid. C-scans are more and more the future because all the new technologies are now moving on to C-scans. And of course, adaptive optics is right now not very polished, the machine, because we don't even have the normative data for the cones. But I'm sure this is the future if you are wanting to study the photoreceptors. Thank you very much.